Welcome back to another episode of What Are You Made Of with your boy, the stubborn, unstoppable Mike C-Roc. Thank you for being here. Welcome back. Thanks for the support that you've given me in the show and the movement and all that we do here under the People Building logo with the C-Roc brand and What Are You Made Of podcast. Today we have Seth Greene with us. He's the nation's foremost authority on how to grow your business with a call to 50 referral oil wells who promote your business every week for a year. Seth is the co-host of the SharkPreneur podcast, which I had the opportunity to be on as well with Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington, which was named the number 6 podcast to listen to by Nasdaq. And Seth is also a 9-time best-selling author who has been interviewed on NBC News, CBS News, Forbes, Inc., CBS Moneywatch, and many more, including now the What Are You Made Of podcast with your boy C-Roc. So Seth, what's happening, man? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm a big fan of the show. I'm super excited to get to be here.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Well, look, we start the show the same way every time. Seth, what are you made of?
I would have to resilience, emotional resilience, and persistence.
And why do you say that though? What happened in your life that you needed to be so emotionally resilient?
Wow. I mean, that there's so many ways to answer that question. I would say the ups and downs of starting running, growing 4 businesses requires it's a roller coaster, as you know. Requires a whole lot of persistence and resilience every single day. I've had, issues in my personal life over many decades to overcome. So I think as an entrepreneur, as a leader, you got to be persistent and you got to be resilient every single day.
Yeah, we could actually end the show right now, because what the point of the show originally was back in 2019 when I started it was I started to notice that the people that I was admiring for their success, their journey was invisible to me. Yep. And then I would go through some things and I would think, man, this is like, they didn't experience that. Like I must not be doing something right. And then I started digging, obviously, and finding out, wait a minute, like everybody has this, there's a journey. It's not exposed.
I used to think the same exact thing. I used to think that it was just me and that I was doing something wrong. And everybody else had this magical business or magical life that was so much easier than mine. And if I could just figure that out, then maybe I could do what they did and get there, right? Tony Robbins says success leaves clues. And then the higher I climb on the ladder, and at least in the industries we play in, I find out that every success is made in, as Dan Kennedy says, in a very messy kitchen. And nobody has this perfect dream. Oh, it was easy and I just haven't had to do anything or struggle with anything. I think the struggles define us. They make us who we are. They're what we are made of. And I think the people who we see as the most successful are the people who simply failed the most and refused to quit.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. Love it. I think that things that come quick, we've seen lottery winners go broke. We've seen people that have, athletes that have just not used to success and money and they go broke. So I think that success comes to us when we're prepared and ready for it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I just finished Dr. John DeMartini, who was in The Secret, his book, How to Make a Hell of a Profit and Still Get to Heaven. And he talks about whatever your religious beliefs are, why would the universe give you money if you don't know how to manage money? And if you happen to get it, it will just flow out of your fingers. You will lose it, whether you're a lottery winner, movie star, NBA, athlete, you're just going to lose it, because if you can't make money without money, how are you supposed to manage money? And that's why we see that issue happen over and over and over again. They weren't ready for it. They weren't prepared for it. So they can't hang on to it. And I think that financial literacy that's not taught in schools these days is incredibly important, so that if we are able to, achieve some level of success, that it won't be all hat, no cattle. It won't be, hey, I made $1 million this year, but I'm broke and I don't have any money. You'll actually get to keep some of it.
Yeah. Brother, let me tell you something. One of the things that I look back on, and if I could change anything, was that as I started to grow in my entrepreneurial abilities and the money started coming in, that I didn't change my lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to tell my kids that now, and I'm going to speak to a high school football team today. And that's one of the things I'm going to bring up to them, just so that they know that at least I said it to them at this age. But man, that's the biggest thing, because once you get to that certain point, it's very difficult to go backwards in your lifestyle, unless you're forced to.
Right. So, that would be, I agree 100% with that. I think people automatically just expenses rise to meet income. I get a raise, you get a raise, you spend it. You buy a bigger house, buy a bigger car, buy some fancy Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki would say, you buy some fancy doodads, that are liabilities, not assets. And I think you are absolutely right. And I've tried to instill that in my kids and worked on that with my wife, although I've had more success with my kids. So I think you are absolutely right. And if you can teach people to have that lesson, the sooner they learn it, the better.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. Let's dig. Like, let's go back to personal kid, when you're a kid growing up. Like, what kind of catalytic moments did you have that were emotional, personal, things that like built you, but you had to deal with and you had to be resilient about?
Absolutely. So, first one that was really one of the defining moments in my life. I was significantly bullied from about the ages of 9 to 13. Like literally I was a latchkey kid. My parents both worked at that time and hated taking the bus home from school. Knowing I get off the bus, I'm going to get my butt kicked.
Where'd you grow up? Where was that?
Amherst, New York, suburb of Buffalo.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, just absolutely hated that part of my life. There were some kids in I switched schools 3 or 4 times to get away from different bullies at different schools. And then ultimately had one a couple of years older than me and 100, 200 pounds heavier than me on the street that I lived on. So switching schools didn't do me any good if I kept coming home to the same neighborhood. And it was a traumatic period in my life. I was not happy. And my parents enrolled me in martial arts, but it didn't do me any good for a long time because I wasn't good enough to defend someone who was like a football linebacker and trained to be aggressive and hit people, right? White belt, not going to win that battle. Just going to make it worse. And it led to a whole lot of things in my life because I wanted to, my dad got me, I wanted to know if anything was going to get better, if my life was ever going to change. So I got into like the occult, and my dad bought me a deck of tarot cards one year for my birthday, but I didn't know how to read them. And there was no internet back then. So he gave me money to go to a magic store near my grandmother's house and buy a book on how to read tarot cards. I got there and I saw a guy behind the counter doing a magic trick. And I said, ooh, I had never seen magic before. I said, forget the tarot cards. I'm going to learn how to do what he just did. And I bought my first magic trick. And that led to a career and a hobby and a career as a magician, which will then turn into my marketing career, which is what we're here to talk about, which is what I've been doing for the last 20 years. But along the same time, like I had tried to summon Satan in my basement, Satan to put a curse on the bully. And my mother comes home and she's like, can you summon him in the basement? You drew a charcoal pentagram on my carpet and you've got candles burning on my carpet. Can you at least do it in the basement where you won't start a fire and it's easier to clean? I'm like, awesome.
So wait a minute. They didn't take it seriously, really, besides the mess?
No, that's all. I was like, great Jewish mom. I'm like, thanks, mom. That's what you're mad about. Like they talked to the school, but it wasn't on school property. Nothing the school could do. They talked to the kids' parents. The kids' parents were jerks, didn't care. They're like, boys will be boys, whatever. So no help with, and they were like, nothing we can do. Sorry. Because bullying wasn't a thing, wasn't so a big thing like it was, 20, 30 years ago, like it is now. So finally, I had learned enough martial arts that at soccer practice, there was another kid who was mad. My best friend and I at the time were in 8th grade, but we were playing like varsity soccer. We were playing up a number of years. We were really good. And the star JV guy who had moved up, who was the, striker, kept trying to dribble the ball behind, get past me in scrimmages. And I kept stopping him every time. And he got so mad, he took a swing at me. And that one, I at least had a prayer because he was my size. Yeah. And I was able to successfully defend myself. He threw another swing. I defended myself on that one. And then the coach came over and said, Brian, that's enough. It's not going to happen. You're not going to beat him up. He's defended himself. And he shook my hand and he said, way to defend yourself, son. And then it's like, about high school and middle school, it's a game of telephone, right? There was no social media 30 years ago, but by the end of the day, like by the time I got off the bus at home, the story had grown to the point where I had like flipped him over my shoulder and knocked him out.
And you're like, yeah, that's what happened.
Right.
I remember those days.
The kid who was bullying me heard about it and was like, oh crap. And like left me alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then like literally a couple months later, we moved to another neighborhood. We're in another school. And I got the chance to reinvent myself, which was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So first traumatic incident I would say that I can remember to this day is ultimately, the bullying, which made me stronger, made me tougher, made me very super ferociously protective of my kids, made me resilient. and then started a lifelong love affair with martial arts, which I'm still in to this day. And then the crazy thing is, like, I hated that kid for decades. You know, I met my wife, who's a therapist. She tried to do some work with me, tried to release some stuff. We had a client in the anti-bullying space at our marketing firm. I learned some more stuff, like what was going on in his house that led him to have that much anger and think it was okay to hit somebody. Right? Obviously, he was getting something happening to him at home. So I started to get some empathy, but that whole issue hanging over my head didn't really change until literally it was a couple of years ago when I was tagged in. It turns out one of the neighbors in that neighborhood ended up playing for the Patriots, made it to the NFL. Not this kid, different kid. I didn't even know he made it to the NFL, but I got tagged in a post because the Patriot player was being traded. His contract was up. And so the bully said something about, I remember when I used to torture that kid in our neighborhood, and tagged me. Seth Greene probably got the worst of it. So then I commented, I was like, oh my God, I showed my wife. I commented, I was like, I don't know if I should message him or not. I sent him a DM, like really nervous. And then we actually had a conversation and he's like, I was such a dick back then. I'm so sorry. Like, I hope you don't have a poster on your wall still of me with like a bullseye going, people to kill. Like I cried, he cried, like huge weight that I didn't know was carrying came off my shoulders. And I mean, it was just a very transformative experience and affected me for many, many years.
Yeah, man. I love this show because I would have never known that about you. And there's a lot of, like, I got jumped. I moved to schools. I got jumped by these guys one time, another time. And then that was it. I had it. I learned how to figure that out. But then I would be the bully after that because it happened to me for a little while, you know, and I regret, like, and I'm talking about when I got into like 18, 19 college, you know, I just didn't take shit from anyone. So I hit people before we got into a discussion. And I'm not proud of that, but you're saying like it's built into you if you let it be, you know? So, wow, man, cool. So after that, now you got into the marketing world. Give us a little bit of rundown how you got into the marketing world, and then the fact that, you know, look, you're working with some, you know, pretty impressive people. But as you've gotten into these impressive people, I want to hear how you got in touch with them and how you started working with them. But also, like, you and I both, we're starting to work with some impressive people, but I also know in my back of my mind that all these people are just human beings and we're just as impressive. We just haven't sometimes gotten to where we need to be yet to be on quote unquote their success level, maybe. But Seth, I know from what I know of you and being on your show, like me, like we're rock stars, brother. So, but I wanted to say that, but go ahead into that story, how you got into marketing.
I appreciate that. It's funny. The higher I've climbed on the ladder, I've realized that people are human beings. And a lot of those folks, what you see on stage is not necessarily what's behind the curtain.
100%.
So, all right. So I became a magician, and had that hobby and part-time profession for many, many years. And then it led me to a theatrical study, right? I got applause performing. I got hooked on the applause. So I wanted to become a Broadway star. At the age of 18, I went to Syracuse University for musical theater because I wanted to be a Broadway star, and they have one of the best departments in the country. Just every semester, my dad called and told me I had to transfer, live at home, get a job. Couldn't go there anymore because he couldn't afford it. So by the time I was a sophomore and he did this every semester, every time he got a tuition bill, I said, there's got to be a better way. I kept my musical theater studies and said, I want to go become a college financial aid planner, which didn't exist back then. I had to literally make up a major between 3 different departments at Syracuse and get approval for it to create something in that arena. And so I decided, even though I had the degree, I didn't want to go to New York City and starve as an actor. I decided to become a college financial aid planner. And the financial planning Fortune 500 firm I worked for said their method for success 20 plus years ago, there was no internet, no social media, no nothing. It was all print ads, direct mail, and the telephone. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't have the budget because I was new for print ads or direct mail. So for me, it was the formula I was taught was make 300 cold calls a day, interrupt strangers, and it'll average that if you make 300 dials, you'll get 1 client. Do that every day long enough without quitting, and you'll build a career. I hated it, hated cold calling. And through my magic career, I found a gentleman by the name of Dave D, who's a legendary marketer in his own right, bought his course, borrowed the money to borrow his course on marketing for magicians, became the most expensive, busiest magician in Western New York in my 20s, and then went to him and said, would this work as a financial planner? And he said, yeah, of course it would. I said, where'd you learn it? And he said, Dan Kennedy, the 2 words that changed my life. So I started working with Dave. I had to borrow more than my, fast forward, met my wife, got married, had our first baby, bought our first house, and she quit her job to be a stay-at-home mom in the first, in one 12-month period.
Whew.
While I'm still cold calling. So I then have to go back to her and say, honey, I got to borrow more than our house to go work with this guy, Dan Kennedy. She said no. But I asked every day for 30 days. And on day 31, she said, you better pray this beep works. So in 2 years, there were 6,700 reps at the firm I worked for. In 2 years, I was in the top. I was at dead last. In 2 years of working with Dan, I was in the top 30, competing against guys who had been doing it twice as long as I'd even been alive. So it got me all this press. Again, no internet yet. I was written about in trade journals and books for financial advisors. And my phone started ringing of advisors saying, how do I do what you did? And I faxed Dan and I said, what do I do? And he said, you start a marketing company and you do it for him. So 16 years ago, we started Market Domination LLC.com. It started out as just me and one financial advisor I was willing to let hire me and test it. And since then, we've now helped thousands and thousands of clients in 63 different industries in every time zone on the planet. And then along the way, as you mentioned, I've been on every media outlet. I've written 9 books. I've been nominated for Market of the Year 3 years in a row. All kinds of awesome success that's been made in a messy kitchen because I hated cold calling and wanted a better way. Dan taught it to me. And then we've been helping other business owners for the last 15, 16 years.
Now, so when you got started though, and you got it rolling and you felt like, okay, we got there's money coming in now. We have some success. We have some clients. What are some catalytic moments during that period after that, where you already had money coming in, but now you're in the business world and you're climbing the ladder? There's things that happen, which we all know about, but like, what are like one of those things maybe?
Sure.
That comes to mind.
So we had, so are you talking about so you're talking about as a financial aid
as a
planner.
business. Yeah. As an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Okay. So one I will give you is the Fortune 500 company. I was doing a road show. So the VP in charge of marketing came and did the show and said, this is our new branding campaign. And we spent $1 billion on it. In our nest egg, roll over your nest egg ads are everywhere, newspaper, TV, everywhere. And we're super excited about it. And I raised my hand and said, I'm a shareholder. And I've been learning this stuff for the last year and a half called direct response marketing. We spent $1 billion of shareholder money. How much money did we make? What was our ROI? And he said, we have no way to track it. We have anecdotal evidence of people saying, I saw your newspaper ad. And I said, no. You didn't have a central 800 number that you could farm the leads out to each office and the branch manager could farm them out to each advisor. We don't have any tracking mechanism on any of those ads at all. No, it's just branding. I said, I'm out. Not out loud, but that was the day I said, I'm quitting. I'm leaving this company and starting my own because they just wasted $1 billion of my company money as a shareholder. I want to go only do the direct response marketing I learned from Dan for. I don't want to work at a company that is willing to waste money like that. So that's what started me starting my own financial firm and then spun off the marketing company.
And you still do financial investing now too?
We still do college financial aid planning now at howtofindmoneyforcollege.com, where we cut the cost of tuition $19,077 per year per kid. But I obviously have a staff that runs most of that company. I will, because the marketing company takes up a lot more time, I will probably work with 5 to 10 families a year simply because of the complexity of their cases that are the toughest cases come to me, whereas our staff handles the rest.
Gotcha. Awesome. That's good to know because I have 2 kids and one's getting ready to go in college a couple of years. So if he doesn't get his football scholarship he's aiming for, I might come calling.
Let me know. Anyway. We'll help you save a bunch of money.
And now, so for the marketing, Seth, like what kind of services are you offering now for marketing? What do you have going on?
Yeah, we got 2 divisions. One is our traffic and conversion division, where we build marketing funnels and then we drive traffic to generate leads or appointments or sales, depending on the type of business it is. And then our other division, our claim to fame is we will recruit you a cult of 50 evangelists who will promote your business every single week for a year, which you mentioned in the intro.
And that's like through via affiliate relationships.
We start those relationships off with a podcast interview to start the relationship for our client with that person. And then we have a multi-step direct mail process that converts that podcast guest into an affiliate, referral partner, center of influence for that brand.
Gotcha. Okay. Got it. Okay. So I love it. I love that. Now, are you seeing any difference in marketing and direct marketing, like now that, like, not what's going on right now, but what's coming? And then how are you guys staying ahead of that curve?
Yes. So there's two parts to marketing. It boils down to two things. There is behavioral psychology, which is why we buy the things that we buy, why we do the things that we do. And then there's the math, cost per lead, cost per appointment, cost per sale, ROI, that kind of stuff. So the behavioral psychology never changes, right? We might get more distracted. We might have more messages coming at us. We might have more stress in our lives as human beings. But the fundamental things that why we buy what we buy never changes. Now, how we buy them and how we learn about them changes every single day because there's a new social media network, right? Okay, maybe a year ago it was Snapchat and now TikTok's the big thing. And then there's going to be something else 6 months from now. So that is always changing. How we stay on the curve, ahead of the curve. I am a voracious learner. So my wife will joke that I am reading 5 books at once. I am taking 3 or 4 different video courses from people I bought them for, or they gave them to me for free because they want a review. I am in mastermind groups. We have people who do research. Like I joke with my tween daughters because they're the ones who got my wife into TikTok. And now she's an little influencer on TikTok, even though, she has 5 million Facebook views. She just started on TikTok. So I will joke with my daughters going, what are your friends signing up for that you haven't started yet? Yeah. Or what is coming that nobody's on yet? Like that isn't big. Like what apps are you using? So that I can kind of figure out, hey, is there a potential for a marketing play on that platform?
Love it. I love it. So I got my mind's racing now. And how do you filter through all the learning that you do? Because I do the same thing. I got 5 books going on, programs. I study spirituality. Like I'm into all this, masterminds as well. But how do you prioritize or filter out all the information? I know my method, but I'd love to hear yours.
So, and I would love to hear yours too. So mine might be a little bit more anal. So I built a spreadsheet that literally that rates each thing on like 5 or 6 different categories, like ease of use, speed of implementation, potential profit, all kinds of things. Those factors, each one gets a score from 0 to 10. They get a total. It sorts by highest value biggest score first. And then I am not the world's best multitasker. I need to do one thing at a time. So I will then take the first thing on the list. Let's knock that off. I may do 5 things in a day, but they each have their own time slot, as opposed to saying I'll do 6. My wife will have 52 tabs open at once on her browser. I'm like, how do you even think? I used to have a triple screen. I had to get rid of 2 of them because it was too distracting. I'm like, no, yeah. I want one screen. I'm going to look at one window, one at a time. And I find I do a much better job.
Yeah, I agree, man. And look, here's the thing for me. I just do, first of all, it's got to align with my mission and core values. Number 1. Number 2, it's lowest hanging fruit. Like you just, and it's just like what you just said, but I don't have a spreadsheet and all that. I go through my mind and I write notes and I'm like, okay, what can I get paid right now with that provide the most value? And then I basically put them in a list of priority. That's it. And then when I have the capacity and room to get to the next one, I do it if something else didn't jump in front of it. So same kind of process though. And
yes,
then,
I'm just a little anal and made a spreadsheet out of it.
Yeah. And the knowledge, well, I haven't my assistant, Kim, I call her my Kim. She does that stuff and helps me out with that. Thank God. But I wanted to ask you something else. How about the knowledge though? Not just the stuff like that you're going to implement, as far as like, systems, processes, or other products you're going to offer services, but the knowledge that you get, like, how do you focus on the particular knowledge that you're looking for? Like what determines what you're going to go after?
So I find, well, 1, I've got a spreadsheet for that too. 2,
of course you do.
Of course I do. And number 2, I go through phases of evolution. I find that our business doesn't get to a new level because I learned some new whiz-bang marketing technology. It's because I grew as a person, right? Yeah. Business is the best spiritual game. I don't think there's a greater lab in the world for growing yourself, personal development, than trying to grow a business. So because of the stress and the struggle and what you'll go through and who you I think the more I evolve, the better our business does. So I go through phases where it will be a systems phase where I'm reading books on systems. I'm taking courses on systems. I'm always in a marketing phase, but sometimes it's on the back burner. Like right now, I'm doing a deep dive, not just on the spirituality side, but on like the spiritual energy of the transfer of money and exchange of value and how we view ourselves as people and stuff like that, which I have found has led to magically more business opportunities.
Yeah. What I've found, and I'll tell you this little thing that's like blown me away, is that every time we've made a failure, setback, or something we considered to that be the case, and especially going back even when we were kids, we made a decision right after a failure that determines what happens the rest of our lives. And then every time we have a setback or failure that we think or whatever, we make these decisions, and eventually it clouds us up like a cell phone with a bunch of different apps on it. Starts to slow down. And when you start clearing out those decisions after failures and differentiating the fact that that was just a different time, different thing, learn from it, whatever, then you start opening up to the opportunities and the attention units that we all have. We only have a limited amount of attention units. However, attention's measured, whether it's time or energy or whatever, we can open up those attention units and they start focusing on the opportunities that are always around us anyway. And that's what you're talking about. I love that, man.
Amen.
All right. Well, I want to wind down here, Seth. What's the best way for my audience if they're interested in working with you, engaging with you? Like, what's on the horizon and how can they engage with you?
Absolutely. So our main website is marketdominationllc.com. Right on there next to the sizzle reel is a form. If they fill it out, we will give them a 15-minute marketing makeover. We normally charge $500 for that. It's free for your audience. If they put in that they heard about us from you, that is marketdominationllc.com. The other offer we'll make is if they go to growyourown.cult.com, there is a 30-page ebook there. We normally sell on Amazon for $14 on how to grow your own cult, our step-by-step process. They can get it for 50% off. Best $7 they'll ever spend in marketing, or I will give them their $7 back at growyourown.cult.com.
Love it, man. All right, guys, go support Seth. Knows what he's doing. I know. I've been watching him since I've been on the show. And I want to thank all of you for being here. Seth, thank you for being here and for your time that you've invested in being on the show. And listen, guys, keep coming back. Go subscribe to your favorite podcast platform, to the What Are You Made Of podcast. If you like to watch these, they're on YouTube at Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco. And of course, go check out our new platform that just launched, Blueprinted, BLOO printed.com. We're ready to go. We're ready to upload creators. We call them architects because it's blueprinted. The Creator Studio is sick. It's so easy to use. And we're ready to put your blueprint on how to do something, how the step-by-step process to how to do something up on our marketplace so that we can help impact the world, get results, and you can monetize on your knowledge. Until next time, though, be unstoppable.